In Brazil, the first results of the second round of the municipal elections show a setback of the extreme right of Jair Bolsonaro. WHO warns that death from malaria will exceed COVID-19 fatalities in Sub-Saharan Africa. U.S. President-elect Joe Biden announced on Sunday that the White House communications team will be composed exclusively of women for the first time in the country's history. Hello, welcome to teleSUR English. I'm Gladys Quesada from the teleSUR headquarters in Havana, Cuba. This is From the South. In Brazil, the first results of the second round of the municipal elections show a setback of the extreme right of Jair Bolsonaro, despite the consolidation of the center-right forces, while progressive forces prevailed in capitals like Belém and Recife. In the capitals of the country, the first confirmed victory was for Edmilson Rodrigues, the candidate for the Socialist and Freedom Party, who will govern in Belém. While in Sao Paulo, Bruno Covas for the Party of the Brazilian Social Democracy overtook Guilherme Boulos of the party Socialism and Freedom. In Rio de Janeiro, the former mayor Eduardo Paes defeated Marcelo Silveira, current mayor and candidate of Jair Bolsonaro. In Recife, João Campos of the Popular Front, in which the Communist Party of Brazil participates. In Fortaleza, the victory was for the Democratic Labour Party, and in Porto Alegre, the Brazilian Democratic Movement defeated the Communist Party of Brazil.
Affiliated with the Workers' Party. It was the PT that helped me get my apartment, and we from the PT are supporting Boulos today.
In this second round, we are voting for Boulos. We consider him to be a comrade due to the proposals that he defends for the population of Sao Paulo.
I voted for Boulos because I've been voting since I was 16, and I have never voted for anyone from the right.
Staying in Brazil, President Jair Bolsonaro says he will not take any coronavirus vaccine, even if it's approved by his own government.
It's my right. I'm sure that Parliament will not make it difficult for anyone who doesn't want to take the vaccine. Anyone who doesn't take the vaccine, if it is effective, lasting and reliable, is only harming themselves. And whoever takes the vaccine will not be infected, so you don't have to worry.
And the Supreme Federal Court of Brazil has extended the time period for the investigation against President Jair Bolsonaro by another 60 days. Bolsonaro is accused of political interference in the federal police in order to control investigations that affect his family. The president has asked the court to suspend the probe and has refused to testify. And this Sunday, Venezuelan President Nicolás Maduro Moros announced the end of the last week of radical quarantine in order to enter new weeks of flexibilization. He also announced the end of the curfew in municipalities bordering Colombia and Brazil.
7+7 will be resumed in January with strength, organization, discipline and awareness, because we are in the midst of the pandemic and I don't want to make false offers to anyone. The pandemic is over, that in January it will end. No. Let no one be fooled. The pandemic is alive and kicking in the world. I have also decided. I was talking with Freddy Bernal, protector of Táchira, and he proposed to lift the border curfew, and together with Otmar Prieto and Ramon Carrizales, I have decided that from tomorrow the curfew of the municipalities bordering Colombia and Brazil will be lifted.
The doctor of the recently deceased Argentine footballer Diego Armando Maradona is being investigated for involuntary manslaughter. Police raided the home and clinic of Leopoldo Luque, Maradona's doctor, on Sunday, as prosecutors are looking to establish whether Maradona was the victim of medical negligence prior to his death of a heart attack earlier this week at 60 years old. Maradona's daughters sparked the investigation after they questioned the medication their father was given. The football legend, however, suffered from serious health problems for many years, including multiple heart attacks, hepatitis, and gastric bypass due to his issues with his weight.
I don't know. I don't know why.
No sé, porque
I don't know.
si pienso
I think
todo,
about everything a lot.
muchas veces me gustaría que él esté
I would
acá.
like him to be here.
Reprocharme,
Do I have regrets?
No sé por qué.
I don't know.
Él quería una vida.
Because he wanted a life that was bad.
Yo trataba
I
de
tried to
acompañarlo.
accompany him, everything. I even took him
Hasta lo
out to
saqué
play
patear,
football.
no quería ni
He didn't
pelotear.
even want to play.
saqué a pelotear.
I took him out to play.
In Guatemala, protesters have returned to the streets for a second week in a row to demand the resignation of President Alejandro Giammattei. More than 2,000 people gathered in the central plaza in the capital, Guatemala City, to call for the resignation of Congress members despite them backtracking to the 2021 budget earlier this week. Last week, protesters burned several offices inside the Congress, also rejecting the approval of a $12.8 million budget. People were outraged that while the budget approved $65,000 for meals for Congress members, it cut funding for human rights agencies, healthcare, education, and the judiciary.
We believe it is important that citizens can speak out, that they can take to the streets, that they can demand the resignation of all these people, because only in this way we can generate important changes.
¿Verdad? Y la gente está molesta, indignada.
People are upset and outraged by a government that does absolutely nothing for anyone. So people are fed up, and this is a sign that the people are tired.
De que la gente está cansada.
On Saturday night, protesters clashed with police and also set a bus on fire in the capital. Angry protesters said the economic measures implemented by the government have only led to growing inequalities and favored the private sector over the public sector investments. Following the unrest, President Giammattei announced his government will begin a dialogue with the business community to come up with an alternative budget proposal. And we will be right back after this very short break, so don't go away. Welcome back to From the South. The World Health Organization warned that deaths from malaria due to disruptions during the coronavirus pandemic to services designed to tackle the disease will far exceed those killed by COVID-19 in Sub-Saharan Africa. More than 409,000 people globally were killed by malaria last year, the WHO said in its latest global malaria report, and COVID-19 will almost certainly make that toll higher in 2020. The WHO report found there were 229 million malaria cases globally in 2019 and said that despite the unprecedented challenges of the COVID-19 pandemic, many countries around the world had fought hard and held the line against the disease. And the number of farm workers killed on a rice farm in northeastern Nigeria by Boko Haram insurgents has risen at least 110 people. The victims were reportedly rounded up, tied up, and had their throats slit by the insurgents using machetes. In September, Boko Haram fighters slaughtered 22 farmers working on their irrigation fields near the city of Maiduguri in two separate incidents. The group has increasingly targeted local farmers and herders in its violent campaign. They accuse them of spying and passing information to the military. Libyan deputies meeting in Morocco have agreed to end the divisions that undermine their country and pledged to work together regardless of political differences. The House of Representatives has not met for 2 years, and the country has been hit by fighting since the toppling of Muammar Gaddafi in 2011. Two rival administrations emerged afterwards and have been vying to take control of the country. The deputies meeting in the Moroccan city of Tangier pledged to hold parliamentary elections and to complete the transition process as soon as possible.
Time being, the meeting's results are very good. We agreed to meet in Ghadames to unify the legislative power, for us to continue working on unifying the divided institutions, to ensure that our country is stable and to get rid of foreign intervention as best as possible.
Ethiopian forces took control of Mekelle, the capital of the Tigray region, on Saturday afternoon, hours after the military launched what they called the final push to retake the city from the Tigray's People Liberation Front. Army Chief General Berhanu Jula said the Ethiopian Defense Force has completely controlled Mekelle. Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed told journalists that government soldiers have been able to enter Mekelle without any civilian casualties. Ahmed ordered a military offensive against the TPLF on November the 4th, after the group attacked a federal military base, killing dozens of soldiers.
This afternoon we control Mekelle fully. We are looking for anti-peace forces hiding in every nook and cranny. We freed more than 7,000 North Division soldiers. We control our North Division camp and all tanks and heavy weapons.
Mauritania celebrated its 60th independence anniversary on Saturday. The commemorative festivities were marked by a military parade in Nouakchott, the capital. The Mauritanian president announced a sharp increase in pensions and salaries in the health and education sectors.
It is a proud day for us because it marks the recovery of our freedom. It is a beautiful day that we are happy to celebrate every year.
I pay here a deserved tribute and express deep appreciation to the heroes of our valiant resistance for the valiant acts of bravery and sacrifice, at the price of their blood, to defend the homeland in the name of its freedom and dignity.
Hundreds of villagers in Indonesia are evacuating after Mount Ililewo Tuluk erupted in the region of Lembara. Mount Ililewo Tuluk left a column of smoke and ash 4 kilometers into the sky. This has triggered a flight warning and the closure of the local airport. The peak of the mountain is now covered by smoke and clouds, and locals have been hiking to reach evacuation camps. According to authorities, there were no reports of injuries or damage from the eruption.
We come from the church when the eruption occurred. Everyone nearby screamed and ran for their lives. After that, people still went home to take important documents because that's essential. When we were busy taking the documents at home, we thought there was an earthquake, so we went outside. Then a hail of volcanic rock came. Because everyone left their homes, we are afraid that there will be death. So temporarily village officers and I are staying in the village to prevent that. We'll see what the situation is this afternoon when we decide to join others in the evacuation center.
And we are going to a short break right now, but stay with us.
Saturday, only on teleSUR.
Welcome back to From the South. U.S. President-elect Joe Biden announced on Sunday that the White House communications team will be completed and will be formed only by women. Among the nominees is James Psaki, who will play the highly exposed role of White House press secretary. Biden and Vice President-elect Kamala Harris have sought to encourage diversity in the appointments that they have announced so far to the executive that will take office on January 20. In the United States, the mayor of New York has announced that elementary schools will return to in-person learning, and the number of days a week many children attend class will be increased, as well as the coronavirus pandemic intensifies in the city. About 190,000 students will be eligible to return to classrooms in the first round of reopening, just a fraction of the more than 1 million total pupils in the system. But the great majority of parents have opted to have their children learn remotely by computer.
Beginning the week of Monday, December 7th, New York City Public Schools will begin to reopen. We will begin with elementary schools, K to 5, and our pre-K, 3K public school centers. And then later that week, on Thursday, December 10th, our District 75 special education programs. So New York City Public Schools will be reopening in phases starting on Monday, December 7th. All K to 5 programs, whether they're standalone or part of a bigger school, those grades will come back, and those pre-K, 3K centers. Why? Because we know, first of all, studies consistently show that younger kids are having less of a negative experience, and there's less concern about the spread when it comes to younger kids. Also, the demands that our parents are going through, and I feel for all our parents who are experiencing so many challenges right now, how important it is for them to have their younger kids in school, how important it is at that age, both educationally and socially, but also in terms of how parents juggle all the challenges in their life.
Thousands of Spanish citizens have demonstrated in Madrid to protest against the insufficient funding of the public health system. Protesters said that the regional authorities have not made enough investment in the system, leading to a crisis worsened by the COVID-19 pandemic. As the demonstration marched down Madrid's Central Avenue, protesters shouted that public health should be defended, not sold off. The organizers also delivered a manifesto to the Madrid regional authorities demanding an end to the privatization of the health system.
The most important thing for me is that the public health system is improved with more professionals per inhabitant. They know this. This needs to happen in the primary health care centers. It is fundamental that this area is improved so that people don't have to go to hospital.
In France, a Paris prosecutor has called for 3 police officers to be put into provisional detention over the assault of a black man, which triggered a nationwide outcry when it was captured on video. The footage shows how music producer Michael Seckler was repeatedly beaten by officers for several minutes and subjected to a racial abuse as he tried to enter his music studio last weekend.
The Paris prosecutor's office has called for their indictment. First of all, the 3 policemen face charges of voluntary violence and gang assault by persons with authority to enforce public order and causing temporary inability to work of less than 8 days with a weapon. The truncheon, the use of racist language, and the charges of forgery by persons with authority to enforce public order. This is the minutes of their first statements: breach of private property by persons with authority to enforce public order and voluntary deterioration of private property. The prosecutor's office has called for the first 3 policemen to be put into provisional detention with consideration to the exceptional and last breach of the public order because of the seriousness of the offense, the circumstances in which it happened, the serious harm it has caused, and to avoid the risk of seeing perpetrators communicate with one another or pressure witnesses.
And the Italian Health Ministry reported more than 20,000 new COVID-19 cases over the past 24 hours, bringing the country's total to over 1,585,000 confirmed cases. Fatalities from COVID-19 in Italy reached more than 54,000 after 541 new deaths were reported on Sunday. Meanwhile, 13,642 patients were announced clear of the disease, bringing the total cured case count in the country to 734,503. The existing 5,771 cases in the country, 3,753 are in serious condition. And protests against the Belarusian President Alexander Lukashenko continue in the capital Minsk. About 170 people are reported to have been arrested as police tried to disperse the demonstrators who had braved snow and low temperatures in the city. This is the 17th consecutive week of demonstrations since the presidential election on August 9, which the country's opposition claimed was rigged. Between 75,000 and 90,000 residents fled their homes after clashes erupted late September between Armenia and Azerbaijan over the Nagorno-Karabakh territory. Close to 20,000 have returned after hostilities were halted by the Moscow-brokered peace deal signed by Armenia and Azerbaijan on November 9. But many of the Armenians who have lived for 3 decades in territories controlled by separatists have lost everything in 6 weeks of fighting.
The Turks came immediately. They pointed their guns at us and said, "Go away, this is all ours, the Azerbaijanis." So we left, giving up everything. Yesterday they told us to come with a soldier and take our belongings. We went with the soldier. We stayed there all day, but nothing. They then said to us, "Go away, we will not give you anything."
And days after President Ilham Aliyev vowed to rebuild and revive the region of Kabaljar and Akdam, a video released by Azerbaijan's Defense Ministry on Saturday showed Azerbaijani armed forces entering abandoned towns. Azerbaijani military convoys were seen entering various towns and villages in Akdam and Kabaljar. The handover of the Kabaljar region follows a ceasefire agreement which ended weeks of fighting in Nagorno-Karabakh between ethnic Armenian and Azerbaijan forces. And we have come to the end of this news brief. But remember, you can find this and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. And also join us on social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Telegram. For Telesur English, I'm Gladys Quesada. Thank you for watching.
Esperé tanto este partido y ya se terminó. Ojalá que no se termine nunca este amor que siento por el fútbol y que no termine nunca esta fiesta, que no termine nunca el amor que me tienen.
Hoy el mundo despide a un grande, a un hombre que nos enseñó que los sueños se pueden cumplir. Y más que un hombre, un gran amigo. Hasta siempre, Diego.
为了保持身体健康，我冥想。
Para mantenerme saludable, yo corro.
To keep myself healthy, I study.
Για να διατηρηθώ υγιής, τρέφομαι σωστά.
Para mantenerme saludable, yo bailo.
Para mantenerme saludable, yo purifico mi espíritu a través del cuerpo. ¿Y tú?
Guide your body. Tuesdays, only on teleSUR.
Una travesía para descubrirnos. Buscamos conexiones perdidas.
No nos queda otra que luchar, porque no tenemos nada que perder.
Realmente es por todos.
Recorremos el mundo con Reportajes TeleSUR.
Saturdays. Only on teleSUR.